The gleaming reception hall of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters stretched before Han Bin Lee like a vast ocean of polished marble and sleek metal. His military boots made no sound on the immaculate floor as he approached the central meeting area, where two figures waited that would change his life forever. The Astra twins stood out even in the grand hall, their silvery skin catching and reflecting the light in ways that human skin never could. Their matching formal attire, deep purple robes with silver threading that seemed to move on its own, marked them as nobles of their species. But it was their eyes that caught Han Bin's attention, identical pairs of violet orbs that studied him with an intensity that made him feel like they were reading his very thoughts. "Welcome, Mr. Lee," the twin on the left spoke first. Her voice carried a musical quality that seemed to resonate in his chest. "I am Jinnah Park, and this is my sister Minna. We appreciate you meeting with us on such short notice." Han Bin bowed slightly, remembering his briefing on Astra customs. "The honor is mine, noble ones. I understand you requested me specifically." Minna stepped forward, her movements perfectly mirroring her sister's. "We did. Your record in the Defense Force is impressive. Multiple commendations for valor, advanced combat training, and most importantly, a noted ability to adapt to unusual situations. Your psychological profile also suggests a high tolerance for cultural differences," Jinnah added. "This is crucial for what we require." Han Bin maintained his professional demeanor, though his curiosity was mounting. "And what exactly do you require, if I may ask?" The twins exchanged a glance, communicating in that silent way that Han Bin would later learn was unique to their species. "We need a personal guardian," Jinnah explained. "Someone who can protect us from those who wish us harm." "But not just any guardian," Minna continued. "We need someone who can become part of our household. In Astra culture, this is a deep commitment." Han Bin's training kicked in as he processed this information. "I assume there's more to this position than standard security work." The twins smiled simultaneously, an effect that was both beautiful and slightly unnerving. "Indeed," Jinnah confirmed, "our species has certain abilities. We communicate partially through bioelectric fields. Twins like us share a particularly strong connection. This makes us special among our people," Minna explained. "But it also makes us vulnerable to those who would use our abilities for their own gain. We need someone who can disrupt these fields, someone like you, Mr. Lee." "Like me?" Han Bin raised an eyebrow. "I don't understand." "Humans have no bioelectric field for others to read," Jinnah said. "Your very presence creates a blank spot in the network of fields our people use to communicate. This makes you perfect for protecting us from those who would try to manipulate our connection." The pieces started falling into place in Han Bin's mind. "So my job would be to live with us," Minna finished. "To be our shield against those who wish us harm, yes, but also to become part of our household. In our culture, this is a profound bond. You would be more than an employee. You would be family." Han Bin considered this carefully. "And what exactly does becoming family entail?" The twins moved in perfect synchronization again, closing the distance between them. "You would share our living space," Jinnah explained. "Learn our customs, attend our functions, be present in all aspects of our lives." "Complete dedication," Minna added. "But in return, you would have the full protection and privileges of our house. Your status would be equal to ours in many ways." Han Bin felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. This wasn't just a job offer, it was a complete life change. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Surely there are others with similar qualifications." "We chose you because you understand duty," Jinnah said softly. "Your records show a man who commits fully to his responsibilities, who adapts to new situations, who protects those in his care at any cost. And," Minna added with a slight smile, "because you're asking the right questions instead of simply accepting our offer." Han Bin looked between the two of them, studying their identical faces. Despite their alien appearance, he could read the sincerity in their expressions. "How long do I have to decide?" "The position must be filled immediately," Jinnah said. "We face increasing pressures at home. Our enemies grow bolder. We need someone we can trust," Minna continued. "Someone who can learn our ways quickly and adapt to our world." Han Bin took a deep breath, weighing his options. His current position in the Defense Force was stable but unfulfilling. This offer presented both danger and opportunity, a chance to be part of something truly unique. "If I accept," he said slowly, "I need to know everything. No secrets, no hidden agenda. I can't protect you if I don't know what I'm protecting you from." The twins' smiles widened in perfect unison. "We would expect nothing less," they said together. And so, with the signing of a contract that would change 3 lives forever, Han Bin Li became the first human guardian to Astra nobility. As he followed the twins to their diplomatic vessel, he couldn't help but wonder what he had gotten himself into. What he didn't know then was that this was just the beginning of an adventure that would reshape the relationship between two species, and his own understanding of family, duty, and love. The Astra diplomatic vessel hummed softly around Han Bin as he followed Jinnah and Minna through its winding corridors. The walls seemed to pulse with a faint silvery light that matched the twins' skin tone, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that reminded him just how far from home he truly was. "Your quarters are adjacent to ours," Jinnah explained, gesturing to a doorway that appeared to materialize from the seamless wall. "The ship responds to our bioelectric signatures, but we've programmed it to recognize your DNA pattern as well." Han Bin reached out tentatively, watching in amazement as the door slid open at his touch. The room beyond was spacious and elegant, with furnishings that somehow managed to blend human comfort with Astra aesthetics. "This will be your home for the next few months as we travel," Minna said, entering the room behind him. "We have much to teach you before we reach the Astra homeworld." The twins settled gracefully onto a curved sofa that seemed to adjust its shape to accommodate them. Han Bin took a seat in a chair across from them, noting how it too adapted to his form. "First lesson," Jinnah began, her violet eyes intense. "You need to understand how our bioelectric fields work. It's crucial for your role as our guardian." Minna raised her hand, and Han Bin watched in fascination as tiny arcs of energy danced between her fingers. "Our species evolved these fields as a means of communication and defense. Twins like us share a particularly strong connection." "Show me," Han Bin requested, leaning forward with interest. The twins joined hands, and suddenly the air between them seemed to shimmer with invisible energy. Han Bin felt a strange tingling sensation on his skin, like static electricity but more controlled. "What you're feeling is the edge of our combined field," Jinnah explained. "Most Astra can sense these fields naturally, which is why your lack of one makes you so valuable. You're essentially a void in their perception." Over the next several hours, the twins took turns explaining the intricacies of their society. Han Bin learned that the Astra were governed by a complex system of noble houses, each with its own unique bioelectric signature. The Park twins' house was one of the most prominent, known for its progressive views on human relations. "This is partly why we face such opposition," Minna explained as they shared a meal of both human and Astra dishes. "Traditional houses believe we're diluting our culture by working closely with humans. They fear change," Jinnah added, demonstrating how to properly eat a shimmering Astra delicacy. "Our house sees cooperation with humans as essential for both our species' survival." Han Bin watched as the food seemed to respond to the twins' bioelectric fields, changing color as they consumed it. "And my presence here? How does that fit into their fears?" "You're either their worst nightmare or the proof they need that cooperation is possible," Minna said with a slight smile, "depending on who you ask." The days began to fall into a routine. Mornings were spent learning Astra customs and protocol. The twins taught him their complex system of gestures and expressions that complemented their bioelectric communication. Afternoons were dedicated to security drills, with Han Bin learning to read potential threats in an environment where everyone could communicate silently. "Your instincts are good," Jinnah praised him after a particularly challenging simulation. "You're starting to recognize the subtle changes in body language that indicate hostile intent." "It's like learning to read a whole new language," Han Bin admitted, wiping sweat from his brow, but without actually seeing or hearing it. The evenings were often spent in the twins' private lounge, where they would share stories of their respective worlds. Hanbin found himself fascinated by their tales of growing up in a society where twins were considered blessed by the stars themselves. Our connection goes beyond the physical, Minna explained one night, demonstrating by completing a complex sequence of movements in perfect synchronization with her sister. We share thoughts, feelings, even dreams sometimes. Doesn't that get crowded? Hanbin asked, genuinely curious. The twins laughed, a melodious sound that seemed to ripple through the air. It's all we've ever known, Jinnah replied. The idea of being truly alone in one's mind seemed strange to us. As the weeks passed, Hanbin began to notice subtle changes in how the twins interacted with him. They seemed more relaxed in his presence, their formal manners giving way to a more casual familiarity. He found himself able to distinguish between them more easily, noting the tiny differences in their personalities that their identical appearance masked. Jinnah was the more analytical of the pair, often spending hours studying human historical records and military tactics. Minna had a more intuitive approach to things, and her laugh came more readily than her sister's. The ship's journey took them through several star systems, each stop requiring Hanbin to adapt his security protocols to new environments. The twins proved to be patient teachers, helping him understand the complex web of alliances and rivalries that made up astropolitics. You're learning faster than we expected, Minna commented after Hanbin successfully navigated a particularly tricky diplomatic function. Most humans take months to grasp even basic astrosocial cues. I have good teachers, Hanbin replied, then surprised himself by adding, and good friends. The twins exchanged one of their meaningful glances, but their pleased smiles told him he hadn't overstepped. As they approached their final destination, Hanbin realized that his life had irrevocably changed. He was no longer just a human guardian to Astra nobles. He was becoming something entirely new, a bridge between two worlds. The Astra homeworld loomed ahead of them, its purple-tinged atmosphere swirling with electromagnetic storms that the twins assured him were perfectly normal. As they prepared for landing, Hanbin felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Remember, Jinnah said softly as they stood at the viewing window, whatever happens down there, we face it together. As family, Minna added, completing her sister's thought. Hanbin nodded, watching the approaching planet. He was ready for whatever challenges awaited them on the surface. After all, he wasn't just their guardian anymore. He was part of their world now, for better or worse. The crystal chandeliers of New Singapore Station's grand ballroom cast rainbow reflections across the gathered diplomats' faces. Hanbin stood at his usual position, 2 steps behind the Park twins, his eyes constantly scanning the crowd. 3 months into his role as guardian, he had learned to read the subtle signs of Astra body language that could signal danger. Tonight was particularly tense. The diplomatic reception marked the first major public appearance of Jinnah and Minna since their controversial proposal for increased human-Astra cooperation. The twins moved through the crowd with practiced grace, their matching silver gowns drawing admiring glances from both species present. Hanbin noticed at first a slight shift in the crowd's movement pattern. His military training kicked in before his conscious mind could fully process what was wrong. The subtle displacement of air, the way certain Astra delegates were carefully not looking in their direction. Down, he shouted, tackling both twins to the marble floor as an energy blade sliced through the space where they had been standing mere seconds before. The weapon made a distinctive humming sound as it cut through the air, a sound Hanbin recognized from his combat simulations with the twins. Rolling to his feet in one fluid motion, Hanbin placed himself between his charges and the assassin. The attacker was Astra, tall and elegant like all of their species, but with a coldness in their violet eyes that sent chills down Hanbin's spine. A human defender? The assassin sneered, their voice carrying that musical quality all Astra possessed. How far the mighty house park has fallen. Hanbin didn't waste breath responding. He had learned that Astra assassins relied heavily on their bioelectric fields to predict opponents' movements. As a human, he was essentially invisible to this sixth sense, and he used this advantage mercilessly. The fight was brutal but brief. The assassins slashed with their energy blade, expecting to read Hanbin's defensive movements through their field. Instead, Hanbin moved in ways their training hadn't prepared them for, closing the distance before they could adjust their stance. A quick strike to the wrist sent the energy blade clattering across the floor. The assassin's eyes widened in surprise, their first and last mistake. Hanbin's next move was a combination of Earth military hand-to-hand combat and the Astra martial arts the twins had taught him. The assassin crumpled to the ground, unconscious but alive. Security forces swarmed the area as Hanbin turned back to check on the twins, who were already rising gracefully to their feet. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his eyes scanning them for injuries. Jin-Ah shook her head, her silver hair slightly disheveled from the tackle. "We are unharmed, thanks to you." Her voice carried a warmth that made Hanbin's chest tighten. "Your reaction time was impressive," Minna added, straightening her gown. "You sensed the attack before they even manifested their blade." Hanbin helped them move away from the growing crowd of onlookers. Something felt off about the crowd movement, the way certain delegates were positioning themselves. "You've learned to read our people's body language better than we expected," Jinnah observed, her violet eyes studying him with increased interest. The aftermath of the attack brought a flurry of activity. Security forces questioned witnesses while medical teams checked the twins for any signs of injury. Hanbin stood guard throughout, his senses still on high alert for any follow-up attacks. The assassin wore the colors of House Kyun, Minna noted quietly as they were escorted back to their private quarters. This wasn't just a random attack. House Kyun has always opposed our progressive policies, Jinnah agreed, her voice tight with concern. But to attempt assassination at a diplomatic function. They're getting desperate, Hanbin concluded, securing their quarters with both standard and Astra security measures, which makes them more dangerous. The twins settled onto their favorite seating arrangement, their movements perfectly synchronized despite the evening's chaos. Hanbin took up his usual position near the door, but Jinnah padded the space between them. "Join us," she said softly. "We need to discuss what this means." Hanbin hesitated only briefly before sitting between them. Over the past months, he had grown accustomed to their close proximity, the way they seemed to create a space that included him in their unique connection. Tonight proved something, Minna began, her hand resting lightly on Hanbin's arm. "Our enemies underestimate the strength of human-Astra cooperation. They expected our guardian to be useless without bioelectric abilities," Jinnah continued. "Instead, your human traits made you more effective against their traditional tactics." Hanbin nodded slowly. "They'll adapt their strategies now. We should expect more sophisticated attempts." "We trust you," the twins said in unison, a habit they usually reserved for moments of intense emotion. "You've become more than just our guardian." The weight of their words hung in the air. Hanbin felt the familiar tingle of their bioelectric fields, stronger now than when he'd first met them. Though he couldn't read the fields like an Astra could, he had learned to sense their presence, to feel the subtle changes that indicated their moods. "We should increase security," he said finally, falling back on practical matters. "Review all staff, change our routines." The twins exchanged one of their meaningful glances before Jinnah spoke. "Agreed. But first, we need to send a message. Tonight proved that our path toward cooperation between our species is the right one. Let them see a human standing proudly with Astra nobility." Minna added, "Let them see that their old ways of thinking are becoming obsolete." As they discussed security measures and political strategies late into the night, Hanbin realized how far he'd come from that first meeting in the Earth Defense Force headquarters. He wasn't just protecting the twins anymore. He was part of something much bigger. A change that could reshape relations between their species. The assassination attempt had failed, but Hanbin knew it was only the beginning. As he watched the twins coordinate their plans with their unique blend of efficiency and grace, he silently renewed his vow to protect them. Not just because it was his duty, but because they had become something he never expected to find so far from Earth. They had become his family. Starlight filtered through the large windows of the Park twins' private quarters, casting soft shadows across the room where Hanbin sat reviewing security reports. 6 months had passed since the assassination attempt, and each day brought new changes to his relationship with his charges. "You're working too hard again." Minna's voice came from behind him, followed by the gentle pressure of her hand on his shoulder. Her touch carried the familiar tingle of her bioelectric field, something he had grown oddly accustomed to over the months. "Someone has to," he replied, but allowed himself to be drawn away from the screens. Jinnah was already arranging their evening meal on the low table they shared, the food a careful mix of Earth and Astra cuisine. "The reports can wait," Jinnah said, gesturing for him to join them. "You can staring at screens since dawn." Hanbin settled into his usual place between them, a position that had become increasingly natural. The twins moved in perfect synchronization as they served the food, their silver skin catching the starlight in ways that still fascinated him. "Try this," Minna offered, holding out a piece of shimmering Astra fruit. "We had it imported from our family orchards." The fruit dissolved on his tongue, leaving behind a taste that reminded him of Earth peaches mixed with something entirely alien. It's good, he admitted, watching as the twins smiled in identical satisfaction. You've adapted well to our food, Jinnah observed. Most humans find Astra cuisine too intense. Most humans don't spend every day with Astra twins, he pointed out, accepting another bite from Minna's outstretched hand. The casual intimacy of the gesture struck him suddenly. When had this become normal? When had he stopped maintaining the professional distance of a guardian and started sharing their meals, their conversations, their daily lives in such a personal way? You're thinking too hard again, Minna teased, her violet eyes sparkling with amusement. We can always tell when you're overthinking things. Your energy changes, Jinnah explained, reaching for her wine glass. Even without a bioelectric field of your own, you affect the space around you. Hanbin raised an eyebrow. I thought humans were invisible to your senses. The twins exchanged one of their meaningful glances before Jinnah continued. You were at first. But the more time we spend together, the more we've learned to sense you in our own way. It's different from how we sense other Astra, Minna added. More like a presence we've become attuned to. The implications of this revelation hung in the air between them. Hanbin took a sip of his own wine, an Earth vintage the twins had grown fond of, to give himself time to process this information. Is that unusual? He finally asked. Very, they answered in unison. Then Jinnah continued alone. There's no record of Astra developing this kind of sensitivity to a human before. Then again, Minna added with a slight smile, there's no record of an arrangement quite like ours either. The conversation drifted to lighter topics as they finished their meal, but Hanbin couldn't shake the significance of what they'd shared. He had noticed changes in himself too, the way he could sometimes sense their moods without looking at them, how he learned to move in harmony with their unique rhythm. Later, as they sat in their usual evening positions in the lounge area, Jinnah brought out an ancient Astra musical instrument. Its crystalline structure seemed to pulse with its own inner light as she began to play, her fingers dancing across its surface. Minna's voice joined the melody, words in the old Astra language that Hanbin was still learning. Without thinking, he found himself humming along to the parts he knew, his deeper voice blending surprisingly well with their silvery tones. The twins paused their music, looking at him with identical expressions of delight. You've been practicing, Jinnah said, pleased. The old songs are important to you, Hanbin replied simply. I wanted to understand them better. You understand more than you realize, Minna said softly, her hand finding his in the dimness. You've become part of our harmony. The moment felt charged with meaning, like standing on the edge of something profound. Hanbin looked between them, these extraordinary beings who had somehow become the center of his world. I never expected this, he admitted. When I took this position, I thought I was just going to be a guardian. And now? Jinnah asked, her free hand joining her sister's on his. Now I'm not sure what I am, he said honestly, but I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. The twins' bioelectric field seemed to pulse in response to his words, creating a gentle aurora around them. Hanbin had learned that this was a sign of strong emotion among their people, though he was still learning to read the subtle variations. You are what you have always been, Minna said, her voice carrying that musical quality that emerged when she was deeply moved. Our guardian, our friend, our... She trailed off, but the unspoken word hung in the air between them. Hanbin felt the weight of it, the potential it carried. The lines between duty and devotion had blurred so gradually he hadn't noticed until they had almost disappeared completely. The traditional houses would be scandalized, Jinnah said, but her tone suggested this was more amusing than concerning to her. The traditional houses are already scandalized, Hanbin pointed out, drawing small laughs from both twins. I don't think we could shock them much more at this point. As the night deepened around them, they remained in their shared space, talking softly about everything and nothing. Hanbin found himself studying their faces, so identical yet increasingly distinct to him now. He could read Jinnah's quiet determination in the set of her jaw, see Minna's playful spirit in the curve of her smile. They were no longer just his charges, no longer simply the noble aliens he had sworn to protect. They had become something else entirely, something that defied the simple categories of duty and obligation he had been trained to understand. The stars continued their slow dance across the viewport, witnesses to this quiet transformation of three souls into something new and unprecedented. Whatever came next, Hanbin knew with absolute certainty that his life would never be the same. And somehow, that thought didn't frighten him at all. The evidence lay scattered across the holographic display in the twins' private study, each piece connecting to others with threads of light. Hanbin stood before it, his face illuminated by the blue glow as he tried to make sense of the complex web of conspiracy they had uncovered. House Kuhn's assassination attempt was just the beginning, Jinnah said, manipulating the display to highlight a series of suspicious transactions. Look at these financial trails. At least 3 other noble houses are involved. Minna moved to stand on Hanbin's other side, her silver skin reflecting the holographic light. They've been planning this for years. The attack at the diplomatic reception was just one part of a larger scheme. Hanbin reached out to touch one of the glowing threads, expanding the information contained within. They're not just targeting you anymore. This is about changing the entire power structure of Astra society. The traditionalists fear what we represent, Jinnah explained, her voice tight with concern. Our house has always advocated for closer ties with humans, but now we've proved it can work. Minna finished, her hand finding Hanbin's arm. They see you as the beginning of a change they can't control. The evidence painted a disturbing picture. The conservative houses had been quietly gathering support, building alliances, and positioning themselves for a major political move against the progressive factions. The attempted assassination had been meant to spark a crisis that would justify a traditionalist takeover. But they didn't count on you, Jinnah said, looking at Hanbin with pride. A human not only protecting Astra nobility, but becoming part of our household. It's their worst nightmare come true. Hanbin studied the network of conspirators, his military training helping him identify patterns in their movements. They're getting desperate. These resource allocations here, they're preparing for something big. A soft chime interrupted their analysis. Minna waved her hand, and a new message appeared in the holographic display. Her face paled as she read it, the change visible even through her silvery skin. What is it? Hanbin asked, instantly alert. Our cousin Seojin, Minna said, her voice shaking slightly. She's gone missing. She was investigating some of these same connections and now. Jinnah moved to embrace her sister while Hanbin quickly accessed the security protocols he had put in place. When was she last seen? Yesterday evening, at her research facility, Jinnah answered, holding her twin. She was working on a project involving human-Astra genetic compatibility. The implications hit Hanbin hard. They're not just trying to stop political cooperation. They're trying to prevent any possibility of our species becoming closer. Minna straightened, her expression hardening. Seojin's research could prove that humans and Astra are more compatible than anyone realized. If she's found evidence, then she's in serious danger. Hanbin finished. He began pulling up transportation records, security camera feeds, anything that might help track down their missing cousin. The twins moved in perfect synchronization, their bioelectric fields pulsing with shared determination. They had taught Hanbin enough about their abilities that he could now recognize the signs of them sharing information rapidly through their connection. We found something, they said together, then Jinnah continued alone. There's an anomaly in the transport logs. A private shuttle left for the outer colonies last night, but the passenger manifest is encrypted with old noble house codes. Hanbin leaned in to examine the data. Can you break the encryption? Not quickly enough, Minna replied, frustration evident in her voice. But we might not have to. Look at the flight path. The shuttle's route took it suspiciously close to a region of space controlled by House Kuhn. Hanbin's jaw tightened as he connected the dots. They're taking her to their private research facility, the one that officially doesn't exist. We need to move fast, Jinnah said, already pulling up communication channels. If they realize what she's discovered, we can't go through official channels, Hanbin warned. We don't know how deep this conspiracy runs. The twins shared another of their silent conversations before turning to him with identical expressions of determination. Then we go ourselves, they said in unison. Hanbin wanted to object. His duty was to protect them, not lead them into danger. But he knew they were right. This was bigger than just their safety now. It was about the future of both their species. We'll need help, he said instead, already forming plans. And we'll have to move carefully. One wrong step, and we could trigger exactly the crisis they're hoping for. Minna touched his arm again, her bioelectric field sending familiar tingles through his skin. We trust you. You've proven that humans and Astra can work together in ways no one thought possible. And now we'll prove it again, Jinnah added, her violet eyes fierce with determination. Together, as they began preparing for their rescue mission, Hanbin felt the weight of what they were attempting. This wasn't just about protecting the twins anymore. It wasn't even just about saving their cousin. They were fighting for the possibility of a future where humans and Astra could truly coexist, could build something new together. Looking at the twins as they moved through their preparations with practiced grace, Hanben realized that they had already built something new, something that went beyond duty or obligation or even friendship. Whatever happened next would determine not just their fate, but potentially the fate of both their species. The stars outside their window seemed to shine brighter as night fell, as if bearing witness to the magnitude of their decision. Tomorrow they would risk everything to save Seojin and expose the conspiracy. Tonight, they would prepare, plan, and draw strength from the bonds that had grown between them. Bonds that their enemies feared but could never truly understand. The Astra Garden dome glowed with bioluminescent flowers, casting eerie shadows across Hanbin's face as he moved silently through the artificial night. Behind him, Jinnah and Minna flowed like liquid silver, their movements perfectly matched as they approached House Kyun's secret research facility. Security grid shows 3 guards at the east entrance, Hanbin whispered, checking the scanner he'd modified to work with Astra technology. They're using bioelectric field dampeners. They're expecting Astra infiltrators, Jinnah observed, her violet eyes gleaming in the dim light. Not a human. The plan was risky, but it was their best chance to rescue Seojin and expose the conspiracy. While the twins created a distraction using their combined bioelectric fields, Hanbin would slip through the facility's defenses, invisible to their security systems that were designed to detect only Astra-like signs. Remember, Minna touched his arm, sending a familiar tingle through his skin. You'll have 20 minutes before their systems adapt to recognize human presence. Hanbin nodded, double-checking his equipment. Find Seojin, get the research data, get out. Simple. The twins shared a look that spoke volumes. Be careful, they said in unison, their voices barely above a whisper. Always am, he replied, then watched as they moved into position. The distraction, when it came, was spectacular. The twins combined their bioelectric fields in a way that created a cascade of false readings across House Kyun's security network. Guards rushed to respond to phantom intruders, leaving Hanbin's path clear. He moved through the facility like a ghost, his military training combining with months of learning Astra movement patterns. The research labs were deep underground, protected by layers of security designed to keep out their own kind, but not his. The first sign that something was wrong came when he reached Seojin's holding cell. It was empty, but showed signs of recent occupation. Hanbin's combat instinct screamed a warning seconds before the lights flared to full brightness. Impressive, a voice said from behind him. We wondered how long it would take you to find us. Hanbin turned slowly to face Lord Kyun himself, flanked by 4 armed guards. The Astra Noble's silver skin seemed to shimmer with barely contained power. Where is she? Hanbin demanded, already calculating odds and escape routes. Safe, Lord Kyun replied with a cold smile, as are your precious twins. Did you really think we wouldn't expect them to try something like this? Hanbin's blood ran cold. If you've hurt them, they're unharmed, for now. Lord Kyun gestured, and a holographic display showed Jinnah and Minna being held in another room, surrounded by guards with energy weapons. Though their fate depends entirely on you. What do you want? The same thing we've always wanted, to preserve our way of life. Lord Kyun began pacing, his movements predatory. Your presence in their household, this aberration of human and Astra cooperation, it threatens everything we've built. Hanbin kept his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. You mean it threatens your power? Our power maintains order, Lord Kyun snapped. These progressive ideas about human-Astra integration, they would destroy thousands of years of tradition. The research Seojin was doing, Hanbin started, proved exactly what we feared, Lord Kyun finished, that our species are far more compatible than anyone suspected. That integration isn't just possible, it's inevitable, unless we stop it now. A plan began forming in Hanbin's mind. Lord Kyun was talking too much, revealing too much, the sign of someone who thought they'd already won. And how do you plan to stop it? He asked, subtly shifting his weight. By making an example, Lord Kyun replied. The tragic death of the Park twins and their human guardian during a failed experiment in integration. It will set our cause back decades. Hanbin allowed himself a small smile. There's just one problem with your plan. Oh? You don't understand what you're dealing with. As he spoke, Hanbin activated the neural transmitter the twins had given him, a device that allowed him to send simple signals through their bioelectric network. The lights flickered, then went out completely. In the darkness, Hanbin moved with practiced precision, taking advantage of the Astroguard's momentary confusion. Their reliance on bioelectric fields made them vulnerable to sudden sensory changes. Across the facility, he knew the twins would be moving too, their bonds with him allowing them to coordinate their actions even when separated. Months of training together had made them into something unprecedented, a human astrofighting unit that moved as one. The fight was brutal but brief. Hanbin's human combat techniques, unpredictable to Astra defenders, created chaos in their ranks. By the time emergency lights came on, Lord Kuhn's guards were unconscious, and the noble himself was pinned against a wall. "You still don't get it," Hanbin told him as alarms blared throughout the facility. "The twins and I, we're not an experiment. We're the future." The door burst open, revealing Jinnah and Minna, their silver skin glowing with power as they maintained their combined field. Behind them came Seo Jin, clutching a data crystal that contained her research. "The data is secured," Jinnah announced, her voice triumphant. "And we've already transmitted evidence of the conspiracy to every noble house." "It's over," Minna added, moving to stand beside Hanbin. "Your plan to prevent integration has only proved why it's necessary." Lord Kuhn's face contorted with rage. "You've doomed our society," he spat. "No," the twins said in unison, their hands finding Hanbin's. "We've saved it." As security forces loyal to progressive houses arrived to take Lord Kuhn into custody, Hanbin felt the familiar warmth of the twins' bioelectric fields embracing him. They had risked everything, not just for each other, but for the possibility of a future where their peoples could truly understand each other. Seo Jin approached them, her violet eyes bright with excitement. "My research confirms what we suspected," she said. "The bond you three have formed. It's unprecedented, but it's only the beginning of what's possible between our species." Hanbin looked at the twins, seeing in their matching expressions the same wonder he felt. They had started as guardian and charges, become friends, and now they were something entirely new, something that would change both their worlds forever. "Ready to face whatever comes next?" he asked them. Their answering smiles were identical and beautiful. "Together," they replied, their fingers intertwining with his. As they left the facility, walking past arrested conspirators and amazed witnesses, Hanbin realized that this crisis point had been inevitable from the moment he accepted his position as their guardian. Some changes couldn't be stopped. They could only be embraced. And he had never been more ready to embrace change than he was right now, with Jinnah and Minna by his side. The great hall of Housepart shimmered with bioelectric energy as hundreds of Astra nobles gathered for an unprecedented ceremony. Hanbin stood before the assembled crowd, his black formal suit a stark contrast to the flowing silver robes of the twins beside him. "Today we witness not just a bonding," the High Elder announced, her voice carrying through the vast chamber, "but the dawn of a new era for both our peoples." Jinnah and Minna stood on either side of Hanbin, their silver skin glowing with barely contained emotion. The past month since exposing Lord Kiam's conspiracy had brought rapid changes to Astra society. Seo Jin's research, combined with their successful partnership, had opened doors that once seemed forever closed. "The ancient texts speak of bonds that transcend physical form," the elder continued, raising her hands. "Today we see such a bond made real." The traditional bonding ceremony had been modified for this occasion. No previous ritual had ever joined a human with Astra nobles, let alone twins. Yet, as Hanbin stood there, he felt the rightness of it in his very bones. "Are you nervous?" Minna whispered, her hand finding his. "A little," he admitted quietly. "I still can't believe this is happening." Jinnah took his other hand, completing their circuit. "Believe it, you've earned your place here 1,000 times over." The ceremony began with the traditional exchange of energy. The twins' bioelectric fields expanded, visible now as a soft aurora around them. Though Hanbin couldn't generate a field of his own, months of close contact had made him sensitive to theirs. He felt the familiar tingle as their energy embraced him. Through crisis and calm, through danger and peace, the elder intoned, "These three souls have proven their bond transcends the boundaries of species and tradition." In the audience, Hanbin could see Seo Jin beaming with pride. Her groundbreaking research into human Astra compatibility had helped pave the way for this moment. Next to her sat representatives from Earth's government, their presence a symbol of the new era of cooperation between their peoples. The strength of House Park has always been its ability to see beyond convention, the elder continued. Today we honor that tradition by forging new paths. The twins moved in perfect synchronization, raising their joined hands. The bioelectric display intensified, creating patterns of light that danced through the hall. Hanbin felt their joy and love flowing through their connection, stronger than ever before. Hanbin Lee, the elder addressed him directly. You came to us as a guardian, became a friend, and now stand as family. Do you accept the bonds of House Park, with all the duties and privileges they entail? I do, he replied, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. With all that I am. The elder turned to the twins. Jinnah and Minna Park, you have chosen to share your bond with one not of our kind. Do you accept him as your equal partner to stand beside you in all things? We do, they answered in unison, their violet eyes shining with happiness. Then by the power of our traditions, both ancient and new, I declare these bonds sealed. The elder raised her hands, and the assembled nobles released their own bioelectric fields in celebration, filling the hall with rippling waves of light. The celebration that followed was a blend of earth and Astra customs. Traditional Astra music mixed with human melodies, while the feast featured dishes from both worlds. Han then watched as nobles who had once opposed any contact with humans now mingled freely with Earth diplomats. Quite a change from when we first met, Jin Ah observed as they took a moment alone in the garden later that evening. Remember how scandalized everyone was just to have a human guardian? Minna added with a laugh. Han then pulled them both close, feeling the familiar comfort of their bioelectric field surrounding him. I never imagined this was where that first meeting would lead. We did, the twins said together. Then Jinnah continued, we felt the potential from the beginning. Though even we couldn't predict exactly how it would unfold, Minna added softly. The garden's bioluminescent flowers pulsed gently around them, responding to the twins' content emotions. Through the large windows, they could see the celebration continuing inside, two worlds coming together in ways that had once seemed impossible. What happens now? Hanbin asked, though he already knew the answer. Now we build the future, Jinnah replied, resting her head on his shoulder. Together, Minna finished, mirroring her sister's position. Their bond hummed between them, stronger than ever. It wasn't just about protection anymore, or even about love. They had become something new, something that would help guide both their species into a future of cooperation and understanding. The stars shone brightly overhead, witnesses to this new beginning. Hanbin held his wives close, marveling at how a simple security contract had led to something so profound. They had faced assassination attempts, political conspiracies, and generations of prejudice, emerging stronger for every challenge. As the celebration continued around them, Hanbin knew that more challenges lay ahead. There would always be those who feared change, who clung to old ways and old prejudices. But standing there in the garden with Jinnah and Minna, their bond humming with shared love and purpose, he had never been more ready to face whatever the future might bring. After all, they would face it together as they had faced everything else, not just as guardian and charges, not just as husband and wives, but as pioneers of a new age of human-astro relations. Their love had changed two worlds, and this was only the beginning. The night deepened around them, full of promise and possibility, as the first stars of their new dawn began to shine.